Chapter 771. After more than 3 years, his soul power had only improved by 2 ranks. But why was it that the aura emanating from his body had become countless times more powerful? If they'd known what Tang Wuling had been through in the Dragon Valley, perhaps they wouldn't be so surprised. After all, he'd been interacting with dragons the entire time, expending a vast amount of energy to bury their skeletons while constantly being replenished by dragon spirits. Indeed, Tang Wuling's soul power hadn't improved by much, but his bloodline power had been nurtured to an unprecedented degree during the past 3 years. Pure true dragon power had constantly been nurturing his body, and even he didn't know just how immense his bloodline power had become. However, what was beyond a doubt was that even Long Yue, who possessed a mountain dragon king martial soul, was completely dominated by his aura. Only after elevating his bloodline power to this degree had he truly begun to display the aura of the golden dragon king. 4 golden rings emerged beneath Tang Wuling's feet one another before revolving around his body. The golden light emanating from his body gradually began to seep into the breastplate. Dazzling light immediately erupted from the breastplate, and its faint golden color quickly increased in brightness. Tang Wuling's eyes also glowed brighter and brighter as dense black light enshrouded the entire area around his body in a diameter of 3 meters. The golden pieces of armor on the table began to tremor slightly, then levitated into midair, where they hovered around his body. Tang Wuling raised his head, and golden scales gradually surfaced over his skin. His original gauntlets and shoulder plates also instantly appeared. Withdraw. Tang Wuling suddenly yelled. All of the pieces of battle armor were drawn by the golden light, and they all surged toward his body as golden streaks of life. With the span of just a few breaths, they completely fused together with his body. Thus, his one-word battle armor fusion was complete. Faint golden armor encapsulated his entire body. The suit of armor had faint dragon symbols on its surface, and the sharp blades were protruding from the gauntlets and shoulder plates. Only when Tang Wuling was unleashing his blood essence aura did faint scale-like patterns appear over the armor. His helm covered his entire head, and there was a pair of dragon horn-like protrusions on either side of it. There was a ridge at the center of the helm that raised slightly upward, and a golden visor concealed his entire face aside from a pair of glowing golden eyes. The most prominent feature of this suit of armor were the 2 sharp dragon horns on the 2 sides of the helm, as well as the spikes of a similar design protruding from the gauntlets and the greaves. The edges of these spikes were extremely sharp, and upon closer inspection, one would discover that they also resembled dragon horns. Faint golden light shimmered all over the suit of armor, giving it an air of mystique. Tang Wuling was instantly struck by the feeling that something extra had appeared in his body, following which these components quickly became a part of his body. His soul and bloodline powers injected themselves into these additional components, and in that instant, he felt as if he'd expanded in size. The enormous enhancements he had experienced made him want to engage in battle right away. You need to acclimate yourself to the power of your battle armor. Should we go to the sparring platforms? Yi Xinglan asked. Sure. Tang Wuling also wanted to see just how powerful he was with his suit of one-word battle armor. In contrast with the outer court, the inner court had designated sparring platforms. Disciples of the outer court sparring platforms also had to pay to be able to use them, but that was not required in the inner court, where the sparring platforms were available to be used at any time as long as they were vacant. After all, after reaching a certain cultivation rank, it became very important for students to be able to improve themselves through sparring matches. There were many occasions during which practical battle experience was more important than one's soul power rank, particularly for Shrek Academy disciples. It was undoubtedly the case that the sparring platforms of the inner court were far more sturdy than those of the outer court. A thick protective barrier rose up around the entire platform, including from the ground underfoot. It was rather uncomfortable to be stepping on soul energy, but at the very least, the barrier ensured that the platform wouldn't be damaged. Shu Lizzie stood outside the platform, while everyone else was situated within it. Who wants to go first? Tang Wuling asked. Yi Xinglan was just about to take up his challenge, but Yuan and Yui had already strode forward. I'll go. All right. In terms of soul power rank, Yuan and Yui was the most powerful one among them. Be careful, my soul power has already reached rank 57. Yuan and Yui cautioned. Progressing 10 ranks in 3 years didn't exactly appear to be extraordinary progress, but it was almost unheard of for a soul master to have rank 57 soul power at just 19 years of age. Even back when Long Yue was 20 years old, his soul power rank had only been in the early 60s. Tang Wuling smiled in response. I'll be sure to do so. The two of them stood 50 meters apart while everyone else backed away into the distance. She couldn't help but yell, Boss, please go easy on her. Shut up. Yuan and Yui grumbled. She gave a sheepish chuckle. I'm just worried about you. Yuan and Yui paid no further heed to him as light flashed through her eyes. She quickly released her martial soul, and soul rings began to emerge beneath her feet, consisting of 2 purples and 3 blacks. It was undoubtedly the case that not only was she outstanding in the soul power department, she was very formidable all round among soul kings. Due to the fact that Tang Wuling had already donned his one-word battle armor, Yuan and Yui also released her own suit of battle armor without any hesitation. Yellow armor that was as thick and heavy as the earth appeared all over her body, and after completing the set, the color of the suit of armor was clearly darker than Tang Wuling recalled it to be back in on the Douluo continent. There was simply no helping that. After all, Yuan and Yui also had a fallen angel martial soul, but she only had one suit of battle armor, so her armor had to cater to both of her martial souls. As such, her suit of battle armor was actually both earth and darkness element. When using different martial souls, the suit of armor would automatically switch to different forms. This was actually a flaw due to the fact that the suit of battle armor had 2 forms to cater to her 2 martial souls. Each of its individual forms was actually slightly less powerful than a normal suit of one-word battle armor. This was why Yuan and Yui had always been an avid supporter of using spirit alloys to construct their suits of battle armor. Using spirit alloys would enhance a suit of battle armor, and this was very important to her. Her suit of battle armor had been the most difficult and troublesome to construct, and if she had to start from scratch for her 2-word battle armor, it would take far too much time. As such, the fact that spirit alloys could be forged repeatedly made it an even more appealing option to her. On top of that, repeated forgeries of spirit alloys could further enhance her suit of battle armor, thereby minimizing the negative effect of having a suit of dual element battle armor. After raising her head and letting loose a long cry, Yuan and Yui spread open her arms, and 2 bursts of light appeared in her hands. Immediately thereafter, her soul rings lit up, and her body rapidly expanded, transforming into a 6-meter-tall Titan giant ape in the blink of an eye. Against Tang Wuling, her Titan giant ape martial soul was undoubtedly the best choice. From the height of her current martial soul, it was quite apparent that it had become more powerful compared to in the past. The 2 bursts of light that had flashed from the ape's hands were none other than the 2 giant alloy hammers that Tang Wuling had given her. However, the soul power fluctuations emanating from the giant hammers had clearly also become more potent. They had to have been improved somehow to make them more powerful. Thus, a 6-meter-tall muscle-bound Titan giant ape stood before him with a pair of terrifying 5-meter-long giant hammers in its hands. Most people would definitely run for their lives at the sight of such a harrowing spectacle. Tang Wuling's lips twitched involuntarily, and he cast his gaze towards Shishi with a hint of praise in his eyes. He had to be masochistic. Yuan and Yui certainly wasn't going to hold back against Tang Wuling, even though he was only a 4-ring soul ancestor. His actual combat prowess had always far outstripped his soul power rank. Furthermore, even though his soul power hadn't improved much since 3 years ago, his bloodline aura had become immensely more powerful. In the face of this new and improved Tang Wuling, Yuan and Yui definitely wasn't going to be taking things easy. The Titan giant ape stomped its left foot into the ground, and it rose up into the air before descending from above while swinging its giant hammers downward one after the other. The 2 hammers hadn't even fully descended yet, but 2 massive hammer projections were already plummeting from above. They were like a pair of giant substantial cannonballs, both of which were completely yellow, and had the same diameters as the giant hammers. Is this her air cannon soul skill? Tang Wuling was quite startled by the ferocity of her attack, and at the same time, he came to realize just how much she'd held back for Shishi to have been able to defeat her. Following the passage of the past 3 years, Yuan and Yui's air cannon had become immensely powerful, and with the enhancements of her suit of one-word battle armor, the 2 air cannons were most likely more powerful than most soul cannon blasts. Chapter 772. However, Tang Wuling merely remained on the spot and displayed no intention to evade as he raised his arms above his head. Both of his arms instantly expanded slightly, and dragon-scale patterns appeared all over his suit of battle armor as his golden dragon claws emerged. The 2 hammer projections were about to strike him, and Tang Wuling reached out with both hands, grabbing onto the projections in a completely fearless manner. Dazzling golden light suddenly erupted from the pair of golden dragon claws, and a burst of golden mist proliferated from Tang Wuling's body. In the next instant, the 2 hammer projections were destroyed by his pair of claws, resulting in an immense burst of backlash that surged through his arms, but his body didn't even sway in the slightest. Yuan and Yui's pair of giant hammers then appeared above his head like lightning. Tang Wuling's eyes immediately began to glow, and he still didn't take any evasive measures. Instead, he clenched his golden dragon claws into fists and let loose a loud cry before lashing out with both fists at once to oppose the pair of massive hammers. One had to realize the pair of hammers hammers weighed in excess of half a ton. Among the current Shrek 7 monsters, Yuan and Yui and Tang Wulin were the only ones capable of wielding those two hammers. Furthermore, the enormous power of the Titan giant ape had been thrown behind these hammers, and if a yellow mecha were to be standing in Tang Wulin's place without its soul barriers activated, it would be instantly pulverized. However, Tang Wulin was using nothing more than his bare fists to combat the pair of hammers. Even Yuan and Yui found this to be quite incredible. She was 100% confident that no one of the same cultivation rank as her would be able to withstand these hammer blows with their body alone. As such, she reflexively held back a little in her attack. The only reason why she hadn't completely bailed out was because she had absolute trust in Tang Wulin. Boom! The hammers and fists clashed amid a resounding commotion. A powerful burst of shockwaves instantly erupted with the two of them at its very center. In that instant, everyone was struck by the feeling that Tang Wulin seemed to have become an immovable mountain. He wasn't using any soul skills or blood essence soul ring skills, but brilliant golden light was emanating from his entire body, as well as his suit of one-word battle armor. The protective barrier beneath Tang Wulin's feet also rippled violently in the face of this astounding impact. He blocked it. Everyone's eyes widened as they looked on in astonishment and concern. They were all well aware of just how powerful Yuan and Yui was. In Tang Wulin's absence, she was the entire team's #1 assault system battle soul master, as well as an integral member of the team. However, they were then greeted by an incredible sight. Yuan and Yui's twin hammers were flung back by Tang Wulin's fists, immediately following which she began to stumble back uncontrollably from the momentum. After stumbling back over 10 steps, she was still unable to arrest her momentum and sat onto the ground while her hammers also crashed down onto the ground amid resounding booms. Yuan and Yui's arms hung limply by her sides, and her eyes were filled with incredulity as she looked on from beneath her visor. She had indeed held back at the last moment, but she definitely hadn't held back by much. However, when her hammer struck Tang Wulin's fists, she felt as if she were facing a ferocious beast rather than a human being, and a terrifying burst of recoil surged toward her like a torrential flood. Furthermore, she clearly noticed that Tang Wulin had withdrawn his fists midway, which meant that he hadn't used his full power either. Following the clash, Tang Wulin simply stood motionlessly on the spot without pressing his advantage. Everyone else was looking on with flabbergasted expressions. She was already rushing toward Yuan and Yui, and even the perpetually calm Yu Xinglan had her mouth gaped wide open. Tang Wulin also quickly made his way over to Yuan and Yui. Are you all right? Having already dropped her hammers, Yuan and Yui wore a wry smile on her face as she said, It's all right, my arms have only been dislocated. If I hadn't been wearing my battle armor. Dislocated? How could you, boss? You're a heartless tyrant. She punched Tang Wulin's suit of battle armor a few times in an enraged and indignant manner. An apologetic look appeared on Tang Wulin's face. I'm sorry. I didn't know this was going to happen. When I discovered that your attacks weren't all that powerful, I quickly tried to hold back, but it was already too late. Deathly silence ensued. Weren't all that powerful. Weren't all that powerful. Weren't all that powerful. Good heavens. This was a Titan giant ape wielding a pair of giant hammers that weighed in excess of half a ton, and Yuan and Yui had unleashed her air cannon attack. No one would even dare to consider taking such a fearsome attack head-on, yet his feedback was that it wasn't all that powerful. Yuan and Yui was also staring at Tang Wulin in a flabbergasted manner. Tell me the truth. How much of your strength did you unleash just then? Tang Wulin considered the question for a moment before replying. Around 50% to 60%. Yuan and Yui was completely speechless. Her body shrank down to its normal size and form, and she pressed her arms back into their sockets. She looked up at Tang Wulin with a serious expression, and suggested, I think you should go test your strength. From a pure strength perspective, even that long Yue may be no match for you. How did you get so freakishly strong? A wry smile appeared on Tang Wulin's face. It's probably because I absorbed some special energy to nourish my body during the past 3 years. I'm sure you're all curious about where I disappeared off to during this time. The truth is, thus, he gave everyone a recount of what had happened in the Dragon Valley. You buried true dragon skeletons for 3 years straight? You win, boss. No one's beating that. She stared at Tang Wulin in an incredulous manner. Tang Wulin smiled in response. I just wanted to be able to leave with a clear conscience. You all know that my martial soul is blue silver grass. If I didn't have my golden dragon king bloodline, I would be nothing no matter how hard I worked. So I'm very grateful for everything my bloodline has given me. After entering the Dragon Valley, I also absorbed so much dragon energy. The dragon clan has done way too much for me. How could I just leave their skeletons out in the open? I just didn't think that it would take so long. Digging holes and transporting dragon bones both require a lot of effort. In particular, the task is made even more difficult because I have to rearrange the bones in their original configurations. Dragon bones are a lot heavier than you can imagine, and it's very likely they contain the quintessential power of these dragons. After doing constant manual labor and absorbing dragon spirits every day, my strength naturally increased. I sensed that this was happening, but I didn't know my strength had increased by so much. It seems like my control over my newfound strength isn't too bad, though, considering it hadn't affected my forging. Xu Shaoan said, looks like it's not necessarily a bad thing that your soul power stagnated. Boss, your body has become even more fearsome than before. Even Yuan isn't a match for you in terms of pure strength. You can probably compete with most titled Doulos. Tang Wulin chuckled. That wouldn't be possible. Titled Doulos would be able to easily crush me with their soul power. However, I also think I should go and test my strength so I can control it better. If I don't wear my battle armor, I shouldn't be as powerful. Yuan, next time, we can try this again. But I won't wear my battle armor. Tang Wulin's strength had undoubtedly stunned everyone. It felt as if he could lift the entire heavens if he wanted to. Such freakish strength didn't even seem attainable for a human being. The inner court had the most cutting-edge testing facilities, and inner court disciples had to test their bodily parameters here once every 3 months, and this included their soul power rank, strength, speed, spiritual power, reflexes, etc. The tests were quite exhaustive, and it helped students determine how they should train and cultivate in the future. When Tang Wulin and his friends arrived at the testing facilities, there was already someone there waiting for them. Chapter 773. Wu Zhangkong didn't look any different compared to over 3 years ago. The passage of time hadn't left its mark on this icily arrogant Prince Charming's face at all, but his aura had become more profound. Tang Wulin hurried over to him and said in a respectful manner, I'm back, Teacher Wu. Wu Zhangkong suddenly stepped forward, and much to everyone's surprise, he gave Tang Wulin a big hug. You're in a better situation than I am, at least. Tang Wulin faltered slightly, and the memory of Wu Zhangkong taking to visit that graveyard in Heaven Dou City. His heart stirred slightly, and he said, Teacher Wu. Wu Zhangkong released him, and said, all right, let's not talk about all this depressing stuff. Let's go get your tests done. She made his way over to Tang Wulin with a smile on his face while pointing at his own nose. It was quite clear that he'd notified Wu Zhangkong in advance. Tang Wulin had been in a state of emotional turmoil ever since he returned to Shred Academy due to the situation surrounding Bu Yue, and he was finally starting to feel a bit better now that he had a new objective to work toward. However, after returning to his senses, he suddenly recalled that not even a single teacher had tried to stop him during these past few days where he'd been desperately searching for Gu Yue, Chaoshi, Feng Wuyu, and Wu Zhangkong had all left him to his own devices. Teacher Wu, I'm sorry. After I came back, Wu Zhangkong shook his head and cut him off. Perhaps you don't understand the situation in the inner court yet, so let me summarize everything for you. After entering the inner court, you'll be regarded as an adult, so you have to take responsibility for your own actions. At the same time, the academy won't impose restrictions on you as they had back when you were in the outer court. Aside from the exams that you have to undertake at set intervals, the inner court basically doesn't exert any control over its students. If you want to do something, then no one will stop you. On top of that, your relationship with Gu Yue was sealed during the Sea God Fate matchmaking convention, so the academy will support you and even help you track her down. We'll notify you as soon as we find any information about her. According to the information that we currently have, it seems very possible that Gu Yue has been hidden by the Spirit Pagoda. Otherwise, there's no way that we wouldn't be able to find her. However, the academy shares a very delicate relationship with the Spirit Pagoda, so unless the Pavilion Master orders us to take action, we can't do anything. The problem is, the Pavilion Master seems to be rather resentful toward you. Of course, Yang Ming was resentful toward Tang Wulin. His best disciple had disappeared because of him, so it would be strange if he didn't resent him. A surge of warmth flowed through his heart upon hearing Wu Zhangkong's words. Even though Wu Zhangkong hadn't come to find him, it was undoubtedly the case that he had also been helping him search for Gu Yue this entire time from behind the scenes. Otherwise, Otherwise, there was no way that he'd know so much about the current situation. Did Yu Yue go to the Spirit Pagoda? Could it be that the issue between us lies in the Spirit Pagoda? The Spirit Pagoda was probably the only entity in this world that the Academy would be wary of. This had to be the explanation behind everything. With that in mind, Tang Wuling was suddenly struck by a sense of purpose. Even though the target that he had to stand up against was a colossal entity, it was always better to have a direction to strive toward rather than being lost and confused. The testing room was far more spacious than he thought it would be, and all of the machines in there took up a vast amount of space. You have to undergo an exhaustive examination so we can ascertain your true bodily condition, which will help us tailor a cultivation plan for you. Wu Zhangkong said to Tang Wuling. All right. Tang Wuling immediately agreed. Let's test your soul power first. Wu Zhangkong led him over to a machine, upon which were two spherical objects. Tang Wuling had used a similar machine in the past, so he hurried over before grabbing the two objects. Wu Zhangkong activated the device, and a series of numbers quickly appeared. Soul power rank, 47. Degree of spiritual power compression, 6. An electronic voice announced. Wu Zhangkong couldn't help but raise an eyebrow as he turned to Tang Wuling with a surprised expression upon hearing the second figure. Degree of soul power compression? What's that? Tang Wuling asked. Back when he had last undertaken a similar examination, that parameter hadn't been tested for. Wu Zhangkong replied, after one's soul power reaches a certain level, quantity is no longer the absolute most important factor of consideration. Quality must also be taken into account, and the quality here refers to the degree of compression. To put it simply, you can have two titled Douluo, but their power levels will be completely different if one purely increased their soul power through consuming spirit items, while the other accumulated all of their soul power bit by bit through arduous cultivation. Between those two hypothetical titled Douluos, there will be a disparity of at least 3 degrees of soul power compression. The higher the degree of compression, the denser one's soul power is. Each degree corresponds to a certain level, and the fact that you have 6 degrees of soul power compression means that even though you're only a 4-ring soul ancestor, the density of your soul power rivals that of a soul emperor who has cultivated arduously their entire life without consuming any spirit items. As such, if we were to combine these two figures, your actual power level would rival that of a soul king. This was the first time that Tang Wuling had heard of such a concept, and he couldn't help but turn to his friends with an inquisitive look in his eyes. She shrugged and explained, all of us who have cultivated the mysterious heaven method have an advantage in soul power compression. I also have 6 degrees, but I'm already a 5-ring soul king. I'm sure everyone else is similar in this regard. Hee, I have 7 degrees. Shu Lizzie chuckled. She turned to him in an indignant manner. You're not a normal person. You can focus all of your efforts on cultivating and compressing your soul power. What do you mean he's not a normal person? Yi Xingling glared at Shi. Shi faltered in response before hurriedly turning to Yuan and Yui with a peculiar look on his face. However, Yuan and Yui completely ignored him, clearly displaying no intention to help him. Shi coughed and amended. What I mean by that is he's far more talented than normal people. Isn't that right, Lizzie? Hee. Wu Zhangkong continued. In this regard, Lizzie is indeed supremely talented. Increasing one's degree of soul power compression is even more difficult than increasing one's cultivation rank. In particular, after reaching 5 degrees, each successive degree of increase becomes extremely arduous. My soul power is currently at rank 77, but I've only just barely managed to reach 7 degrees of compression. Let's go to the next machine. Following everyone's explanations, Tang Wuling finally understood the meaning behind this parameter. For him to have reached 6 degrees of compression with just 4 rings undoubtedly indicated that he had a lot of room for growth. So this was a very good statistic. This will be a spiritual power examination. Tang Wuling sat down onto a massive device, and a helmet descended onto his head. Wu Zhangkong explained, the machines here in the inner court are very big, but they're very safe, so you can just relax and release your spiritual power naturally around your own head. The machine will do the rest. Tang Wuling closed his eyes and did as he was told. He also really wanted to know what level his spiritual power was at. Back in the Dragon Valley, he had already deduced that he'd progressed from the Spirit Sea realm to the Spirit of this realm. However, he hadn't undergone any legitimate testing, so he wasn't sure whether his judgment was correct or not. After all, only 500 points of spiritual power were required to reach the Spirit Sea realm, but that number spiked sharply to 5,000 for the Spirit of this realm. After reaching the Spirit of this realm, one would reach another world entirely. Many extremely powerful soul masters only had spiritual power at this realm. According to Tang Wuling's knowledge, even Teacher Wei hadn't reached that level prior to their journey to the Douluo Empire. The machine began to operate, and one light was switched on after another. Each light represented 100 points of spiritual power, and the number of lights that were switched on increased very quickly, reaching 10 lights in the blink of an eye. No one found this to be surprising. After all, they'd known from long ago that Tang Wuling's spiritual power had reached the Spirit Sea realm, so it was quite normal for it to have increased to 1,000 points since then. In reality, all of them had also reached this level in their spiritual powers. Xu Shaoan had the most spiritual power among them, having already reached over 3,000 points, which placed her above the mid-spirit sea realm. As for Yu Yue, she never did her tests at the academy, choosing to do them at the Spirit Pagoda instead, so no one knew what level her spiritual power was at. However, the machine showed no sign of stopping there, and soon, 10 more lights were switched on. 2,000. Surprised expressions began to appear on everyone's faces. After all, Tang Wuling was an assault system battle soul master. As such, it was quite extraordinary for him to have spiritual power in excess of 2,000 points. If he could be more conservative when choosing his soul spirits, spiritual power of this level was sufficient to support him all the way to the titled Douluo level. After that, he reached 3,000. When the 30th light was switched on, everyone's mildly surprised expressions had been replaced by sheer astonishment. Xu Shaoan exclaimed, "Boss's spiritual power won't outstrip mine, will it?" Before she'd even finished her sentence, the 34th light was switched on. Her spiritual power was only around 3,300 points. Tang Wuling's spiritual power had already exceeded 3,000. That was very rare even among inner court disciples. Spiritual power was very important to soul masters, but its importance naturally couldn't compare with that of soul power. Unless one was striving to fuse with soul spirits of a higher caliber, very rarely would soul masters focus solely on cultivating their spiritual power. 4,000. Chapter 774. Flabbergasted. Everyone was completely flabbergasted. 4,000 points of spiritual power placed one at the pinnacle of the Spirit Sea realm. After reaching that level, they'd have a chance at making a breakthrough to the Spirit of this realm in the future. What was the Spirit of this realm? At that realm, one spiritual power would become an abyssal prison. If his spirit were the world, then the upper boundary would be heaven while the lower boundary would be hell. This was the Spirit of this realm, the realm that was commonly referred to as the limit for a normal human's spiritual power. With this level of spiritual power, one would be able to fuse with any level of spirit souls, even orange and red ones. However, each person could only fuse with one orange and one red soul spirit, and after fusing with one of those two types of soul spirits, one's capacity to fuse with other soul spirits would revert back to that of being with spiritual power at the Spirit Sea realm. If no red or orange soul spirits had been fused with, then the upper limit for the number of soul spirits of other levels that could be fused with was 5. Generally speaking, the Spirit of this realm is the limit of human spiritual power. However, lights were still being switched on at an even pace, which indicated that Tang Wuling still hasn't reached his limits. Beep. A sound suddenly came from the machine. Immediately thereafter, all of the lights from before were snuffed out at once. Just as everyone had thought that this was the end, a purple light was suddenly switched on off to the side. Spirit of this realm. Wu Zhangkong exclaimed with an astonished look in his eyes. Even now, his spiritual power still hadn't reached the Spirit of this realm. What was the Spirit of this realm? It was like the sound barrier. Being above the Spirit of this realm and being below it were two entirely different concepts. As such, the fact that Tang Wuling had made a breakthrough to the Spirit of this realm without special cultivation focused on spiritual power enhancement was downright incredible. One yellow light was switched on after another, and the test continued. No one was astonished anymore as they were all feeling slightly numb. Tang Wuling was a rank 47 soul ancestor, yet his spiritual power had reached the Spirit of this realm. Even spirit-type soul masters may not be able to get to that level at this soul power rank. They had all guessed that Yu Yue's spiritual power had most likely already reached the Spirit of this realm, but it had never been verified. However, Yu Yue's martial soul had the ability of elemental control, which required her to possess an extremely high level of spiritual power. In contrast, Tang Wuling was an assault system soul master, and at a stretch, one could argue that he was also a control system soul master as well. So why had his spiritual power reached such an insane level? Everyone was cultivating the purple demon eyes. Why was there such a massive disparity? 6,000. 7,000. Lights were still being switched on without pause. At this point, Tang Wuling's spiritual power had reached more than double that of Xu Shaoan's. Even Wu Zhangkong was completely rooted to the spot now. He'd never encountered such a situation during all his time at the academy. In the inner court, there were extremely few, perhaps even no disciples with spiritual power that outstripped Tang Wulin's. According to Wu Zhangkong's knowledge, the one with the most spiritual power in the academy was naturally none other than the current master of the Sea God's Pavilion, the limit Douluo, Atlas Douluo Yanming. His spiritual power had already reached the legendary divine origin realm, and he was the only one in Shrek Academy to have reached that level. Aside from him, even light dark Douluo Lunyayu's spiritual power was only at the spirit domain realm. The spirit abyss realm was only one step away from the spirit domain realm. 20,000 points of spiritual power was the lower limit to reach the spirit domain realm. Tang Wulin's spiritual power had already reached in excess of 7,000 points, and he was only 18 years of age. This meant that he would be guaranteed to at least be able to attempt breakthroughs to the spirit domain realm in the future. Calling him a prodigy simply wouldn't do him justice at this point. During the earlier phases of one's cultivation, the effects of having high spiritual power weren't all that prominent for soul masters, unless they possessed martial souls that required high levels of spiritual power to support. However, after reaching the title Douluo level, spiritual power would begin to play a pivotal role. If a title Douluo wanted to advance even further, then they would have to attain immense spiritual power. The higher the level of their spiritual power, the greater the chance that they'd be able to progress in their cultivation. Limit Douluos had to have divine origin realm spiritual power, and this was a major obstacle that stood in the way of many hyper Douluo. Light dark Douluo Lunyayu hadn't been able to become a limit Douluo precisely because she wasn't able to make a breakthrough to the divine origin realm. In this current world, the number of people with divine origin realm spiritual power would be counted on a single hand. Of course, there was a higher level, which was the legendary God King realm, but no one had reached that level ever since this world had lost connection with the divine realm. It was said that unless one truly became God, there was no way for their spiritual power to reach that realm. The rate at which the lights were switching on was finally beginning to decelerate, indicating that the test was about to reach its conclusion. After the 28th yellow light was turned on, everything finally stopped. One purple light and 28 yellow lights. 7,800 points of spiritual power. Everyone felt their throats run dry as they processed this statistic. 7,800. This was beyond incredible. Everyone knew what it meant to have 7,800 points of spiritual power. He had reached the spirit abyss realm, and he hadn't just barely reached it, either. He wasn't far away from the mid-spirit abyss realm, which required a minimum of 10,000 points of spiritual power. Tang Wulin couldn't hear any sound from the outside world as he was wearing a helmet, but following a notification tone from the machine, he was prompted to remove his helmet. He looked around at all of his friends' dumbstruck faces, and a befuddled look appeared on his face. What's wrong? 7,800. She explained as an explanation. Tang Wulin folded slightly before giving a nonchalant response. Oh, that's it. Aren't you stunned, boss? Your spiritual power has reached 7,800 points. You're at the spirit abyss realm. She said in an excited manner. Tang Wulin replied, Douluo reached the spirit abyss realm long ago. What's so impressive about this? Everyone was rendered completely speechless. Wu Zhangkong appraised him with an intense gaze. Did you already know that you'd made a breakthrough to this realm? Tang Wulin nodded. I seem to have felt something when I made the breakthrough. It was as if the entire world had become clearer, and my sensory abilities were drastically enhanced. It was as if I'd pushed open a door and entered another world. Wu Zhangkong faltered slightly upon hearing this before nodding as he said, Thank you. Tang Wulin's insights were undoubtedly going to be very helpful to him. Tang Wulin asked, What's next? Let's test your strength. Wu Zhangkong replied. He remained completely expressionless, but the emotions deep within his eyes indicated that he wasn't as calm as he looked. The strength testing device was far more massive than Tang Wulin had imagined. It looked like a small mountain. There were a total of 30 striking spots, all of which were of different shapes and sizes. Wu Zhangkong explained, the strength test is an all-round test, and the tests can be very specific. For example, you can test the powers of your palms, your fists, your shoulder barge, and even your battle armors and weapons. I suggest you do the punching test, then repeat the test after putting on your battle armor, and that should give you a good gauge of your current strength level. Tang Wulin had been under his tutelage for many years, so he understood Tang Wulin's abilities better than anyone else. All right, Tang Wulin agreed. Everyone reflexively took a few steps backward. Compared to his spiritual power, everyone was undoubtedly more curious about his strength. Even Yuan and Yui's immense strength was considered to be too feeble in Tang Wulin's eyes. Just how freakishly strong was he? The punching target appeared. Tang Wulin did a few stretches, and his blood essence power surged forth, instantly warming up his entire body. Faint golden light began to emanate from within his eyes. Begin. Following a loud instruction from Wu Zhangkong, Tang Wulin turned around 90 degrees before unleashing a lightning fast punch with his right fist. Boom. The entire target quaked violently, and even the entire mountainous machine trembled dramatically a few times before coming to a rest. Right fist strength, 104,000 kilograms. The electronic voice revealed the answer to everyone. Even Tang Wulin was rooted to the spot upon hearing this. 104,000 kilograms. What kind of concept was that? 1 ton was 1,000 kilograms, so this meant his punch packed 104 tons of force. Deathly silence ensued, and even Wu Zhangkong was rendered completely speechless. Chapter 775. Tang Wulin looked down at his right hand, then turned to his friends with a sheepish look on his face, and feebly explained, It's just explosive power. Only then did Wu Zhangkong return to his senses. The standard for a full force attack from a black mecha is 35,000 kilograms. Only after reaching that standard can a mecha be rated as a black mecha. Red mechas are too special, so no strength assessment is made on them. This means that the power of that punch you just unleashed is over 3 times that of a black mecha. Boss, you're a beast in human skin. I now understand that you already held back on Yuanan. Indeed, there was no way to describe Tang Wulin other than to refer to him as a beast in human skin. Don't forget that he hadn't even donned his suit of battle armor yet. Furthermore, he hadn't used any of his strength enhancement soul skills, such as his golden dragon body. All right, let's stop there. Wu Zhangkong waved a hand. Tang Wulin turned to him with a puzzled expression. Why? A rare humanized expression of indignation appeared on Wu Zhangkong's face as he scoffed. Why? This machine can only handle a maximum of 200,000 kilograms for force. I'm afraid you'll break it if you put on your battle armor. However, I have to give you a suggestion. Improve your soul power and upgrade your battle armor as quickly as you can. Otherwise, your one-word battle armor won't be able to handle your current level of strength. In a particularly fierce clash, you could even damage your battle armor. Even one-word battle armor couldn't handle Tang Wulin's strength. A wry smile appeared on Yuan and Yui's face. I thought I'd already surpassed you, but in reality, you've only left me further behind. Strength wasn't exactly a fearsome ability among soul masters as pure strength itself had far too many limitations. However, after honing any skill or ability to an extreme extent, it would begin to defy the boundaries of logic. Wu Zhangkong gave them another statistic. 100,000 kilograms of punching strength is the minimum threshold for the power system titled Douluo. Generally speaking, power system 3-word battle armor masters can also reach this level of strength. Wulin, are you really a human being? Wu Zhangkong's abrupt question had Tang Wulin feeling rather awkward, and couldn't help but look down at his 2 hands. After absorbing the power of the Golden Dragon King seals, was he really still a human? However, the fact that even Wu Zhangkong was so astonished acted as further testament to just how insane Tang Wulin's strength currently was. Wu Zhangkong looked at Tang Wulin, and a gentle expression appeared in his eyes. You've all grown up, and I have nothing more to teach you. From now on, you'll be taught by the titled Douluos of the academy. Tang Wulin hurriedly said, Teacher Wu, you. Wu Zhangkong waved a hand and cut him off. You, Yue, Xiaoan, and Shishi have been my students even back in East City, and I'm very glad to see everything that you've achieved. I've already temporarily resigned from my post as a teacher in the academy, and I'm going to go into secluded cultivation soon. I'll be in seclusion for at least a year on this occasion. He paused here before looking at everyone around him. All of you gave me hope and reignited the flame in my heart, urging me to strive for self-improvement again. Wulin, I don't think there's any need for you to be overly concerned about Yue. She's powerful enough on her own, and I think the differences between the two of you lie in the competition between the Spirit Pagoda and the Tang sect. If you really like her, then do everything in your power to become stronger. In this world, power is always the key to everything. With sufficient power, the impossible can become possible. I'm very glad that you didn't wallow in self-pity and give up on everything. Your greatest strength is that you can always grow stronger in the face of adversity. That is also the key to your success. Keep on forging ahead for both Yue and for your friends. I will. Tang Wulin replied in a determined manner as he clenched his fists tightly. The rest of the examination progressed very smoothly, but extremely astonishing statistics were yielded every time there was a test conducted on Tang Wulin's body. The hardness of his skin unrivaled bird of defense system soul beasts that were in excess of 1,000 years old. Overall, he really did seem more like a beast in human skin than an actual human. All right, that's all the tests for today. I'll submit these statistics to the Sea Gods Pavilion. You've only just returned to the inner court with your aptitude. I'm sure the Sea Gods Pavilion will deploy a teacher specifically to instruct you in your cultivation. In my opinion, your grand teacher is the likeliest candidate for that role. After all, you were studying under his tutelage to begin with. You can go to the Spirit Pagoda to give your battle armor a name now, assigning a name to his one-word battle armor. This was something that all soul masters aspired toward, as this was only a right that they received after attaining a complete set of one-word battle armor. Even though only one word could be used to name a suit of one-word battle armor, that was still something that all soul masters looked forward to, as it acted as proof of their power and also brought them unmatched glory. Tang Wuolin reflexively turned toward his friends, only to find everyone looking back at him. She chuckled. We always knew that you'd come back. So even though we've all attained full sets of one-word battle armor, we still haven't made any efforts toward attaining our suits of two-word battle armor. You have to hurry up and begin forging for us so all of us can upgrade our battle armor. Everyone smiled in unison upon hearing this. Yuan and Yui said, you are the only blacksmith that we trust because you have the greatest understanding of the alloys required for our suits of battle armor. Tang Wuolin asked, have you all named your suits of battle armor? Yuan and Yui nodded in response. Generally speaking, the names of our battle armor are related to our martial souls. In other words, a lot of us will be assigning our first two words to be something related to our martial souls. She chuckled. When I attain enough words, the name can also be related to my lover. Yuan and, which words of your name should I use when my battle armor gets upgraded in the future? Yuan and Yui blushed upon hearing this. Do whatever you want. She chuckled. Then I really have to think long and hard about this. Tang Wuolin fell into deep thought upon hearing this. He suddenly recalled the name of Wu Zhangkong's battle armor, Sky Ice. His suit of battle armor had been named Sky Ice, so he was referred to as Sky Ice Wu Zhangkong. The sky was from his Skyfrost sword, and the ice was from Longbing. The Chinese character for the Bing in Longbing's name literally translates to ice. It was a pity that he could only use one character to name his battle armor, so there wasn't much choice. After upgrading it to two words, I'll go register the name right away, Tang Wuolin said. After leaving the testing facilities, everyone went back to cultivate while Tang Wuolin left the academy, then hailed a soul taxi to the headquarters of the Spirit Pagoda. To a soul master like him, the Spirit Pagoda was definitely a colossal entity. When the giant pagoda appeared in Tang Wuolin's field of view in the distance, a surge of powerful emotions suddenly welled up in his heart. For Gu Yue's sake, so what if he had to face the entire Spirit Pagoda someday? As long as he became powerful enough, nothing was impossible. Gu Yue, wait for me. I'll become more powerful, and I'll build up my own forces to oppose the Spirit Pagoda. When you need me, I'll stand by your side, and I'll take you back with me even if I have to do so by force. This wasn't the first time that Tang Wuolin had visited the Spirit Pagoda, but he was still stunned by how grand and majestic the building was. An employee made their way over to him and asked, is there something I can help you with? Tang Wuolin replied, I want to register a name for my battle armor. A hint of surprise flashed through the employee's eyes, and he asked, are you from Shrek Academy? Yes. Tang Wuolin replied with a nod. The employee immediately adopted a respectful expression as he said, right this way. Tang Wuolin followed him onto an extremely spacious elevator that was constructed from glass, thereby allowing him to see everything outside. The elevator traveled upward at a very fast speed, and the ground quickly shrank in his field of view as if he were flying. Ding. The elevator stopped on the 101st level. Welcome to the 101st level of the Spirit Pagoda. Sky Dragon's Roar. The employee made an inviting hand gesture. After making their way out of the elevator, another employee immediately walked over to greet them. This employee was in slightly different attire compared to the normal employee from before. This employee was a beautiful young woman in a long white dress with barely visible dragon patterns embroidered on its surface, and she had an exceptional disposition. She appeared to be around 20 years of age, and her eyes immediately lit up at the sight of Tang Wuolin. What a handsome young man. She knew what it meant for someone to be taken to the 101st level, and she made an extremely respectful hand gesture as she said, please come with me, esteemed battle armor master. Tang Wuolin's heart stirred slightly upon seeing this. Battle armor masters really did receive different treatment. Wu Zhangkong was right. In the world of soul masters, power was everything. At the same time, he began to appraise this 101st level. Chapter 776. This was a very spacious hall with an extremely tall ceiling. The ground was black with glistening white dragon patterns on its surface, and the hall had been divided up into different sections. One curved counter after another was positioned in an orderly configuration, and the ceiling of the hall was around 20 meters above the ground. All of the walls were constructed from glass, thereby allowing one to see the cloud and mist outside. As expected of the Sky Dragon's roar, is this your first time on our 101st level? The young woman asked with a smile. Tang Wuolin nodded and replied, yes, this is my first time here. I'm very honored to be able to serve you. You can call me Shuiyu. The young woman continued. Her name, Shui, Wu, literally translates to waterfish. Shuiyu, that's an interesting name. Tang Wuolin turned to her with a hint of intrigue in his eyes. The young woman's smile widened, and she replied, indeed, that's what everyone says. All of us that work here have nicknames. I was born in a seaside city, and I have a fish-type martial soul. I was also always a crybaby as a child, so everyone says there's too much water in my body, and they jokingly refer to me as Shuiyu. Tang Wuolin couldn't help but burst into laughter upon hearing this, and Shuiyu was momentarily entranced. She couldn't help but think to herself about just how handsome Tang Wuolin was. His smile seemed to be able to completely attract one's gaze. Seeing as this is your first time here, allow me to offer a brief introduction. Our Spirit Pagoda holds all battle armor masters in very high regard, so this designated area was set up specifically to serve battle armor masters. We hope that every single battle armor master can make their voices be heard in the world of soul masters, just like the roar of a true dragon. So this place is known as the Sky Dragon's Roar. After being registered in our Spirit Pagoda, all battle armor masters will receive a series of benefits. Firstly, we'll be offering you a VIP service that isn't available to normal soul masters. As part of this service, you'll be granted access to the intermediate Spirit Ascension plane twice per year and the Spirit Soul Tower once per year, all free of charge. At the same time, you'll be able to enter the advanced Spirit Ascension plane once at half price. This is the standard service we offer to one-word battle armor masters, and more benefits will be offered after you reach a higher level. Tang Wuolin was quite stunned to hear this. He knew just how much resources were required to enter the Spirit Ascension plane, which was why he was very surprised that he'd be granted access to the intermediate Spirit Ascension plane free of charge twice per year. At this current cultivation rank, it was indeed a suitable time for him to explore the intermediate Spirit Ascension plane. It would be a very good idea for him to upgrade his soul rings in there. What do I need to give in return? Tang Wuolin asked in a calm manner. Shuiyu smiled and replied, nothing. All you have to do is complete your registration here. At the same time, our Spirit Pagoda releases missions for battle armor masters, so you can go and undertake some missions if you're interested. We definitely offer the best rewards for our missions, and we act as a platform for both soul masters and battle armor masters. As such, we'll be sure to offer VIP clients like yourself a variety of services that will help you reach a higher level in the future. Tang Wuolin had been interacting with the Spirit Pagoda for a long time, but this was the first time that he'd been made aware of the extent of the services offered by this organization. It was no wonder that they were the largest organization on the entire continent at present. Just the methods they employed to draw in soul masters was unmatched. Tang Wuolin couldn't help but ask, isn't it unreasonable for your organization to give us benefits without any compensation? Shuiyu stuck out her tongue in a very adorable manner. Actually, we have our ways of making this system work out for us as well. After you grow accustomed to the benefits offered to you by the Spirit Pagoda, you'll naturally want to enjoy more benefits, such as entering the advanced Spirit Ascension plane to obtain soul spirits of higher calibers. When that time comes, money won't be the only thing that's required to access those benefits. There are some high-level services that will require the expenditure of mission points to access, which means that if you want to make use of those services, you'll need to complete some missions for our Spirit Pagoda. Tang Wuolin was enlightened by her explanation. As expected, no good things came truly free of charge in this world. At the same time, you must wear a communication watch that our Spirit Pagoda distributes every day so you can receive the missions we release. You can choose not to accept those missions, but you still need to wear the watch. Only by wearing the watch for a sufficient amount of time every day will you be able to enjoy all of the benefits on offer. Tang Wuolin smiled upon hearing this. As expected of the Spirit Pagoda, this appeared to only be a trivial detail, but it gave the Spirit Pagoda the ability to immediately transmit whatever information they'd like to all of their registered soul masters and battle armor masters, and that was an incredible perk for them. The information and missions released through the watches didn't bind the soul masters in any way, but it did constantly keep the organization connected to these soul masters. To all soul masters, the soul spirits of the spirit pagoda were completely indispensable, so they'd naturally develop a sense of dependence toward the spirit pagoda. It was no wonder that the spirit pagoda had overtaken the Tang sect as the most prominent organization on the entire continent, even though the latter had a far longer history. This was the power and allure of the spirit pagoda. I understand now. Can I go and register my battle armor now? Tang Wuling asked. Of course you may. Right this way, please. Shui led him over to a counter, behind which another beauty in the same attire as her was standing, and she said, this esteemed battle armor master would like to name his battle armor. The employee behind the counter rose to her feet, and said, please come with me to our testing room for an evaluation first. The process through which a suit of battle armor was evaluated was very simple. The process involved the battle armor master releasing their battle armor, following which an energy scan is conducted to ascertain the enhancement effect of the suit of battle armor, as well as to verify that the suit of armor was indeed complete. The testing room was right behind the counter, and it was a hexagonal room with a complex soul formation symbol on the floor. Tang Wuling didn't know much about this area, and he was only struck by the impression that the symbol was very majestic to behold. There was a spherical device hanging above his head, and Shui prompted, please release your battle armor. Tang Wuling did as he was instructed, and specks of light began to appear all over his body at his behest. Two-word battle armor? Shuayu and the other employee exclaimed in unison. A suit of golden battle armor appeared to encapsulate Tang Wuling's entire body, and when the golden visor emerged to conceal his face, the aura that erupted from his body brought expressions of astonishment to the faces of both of the employees. What a powerful aura! As employees of the Sky Dragon's Roar, they had seen more than their fair share of battle armor, but it was the first time that they had felt such an immense aura from a suit of battle armor. In reality, this wasn't just the aura of the suit of battle armor alone. Instead, this powerful aura was the result of a combination of the battle armor, as well as Tang Wuling's own aura and bloodline aura. A beam of light descended from above, illuminating Tang Wuling's body. He was only struck by the sensation that something seemed to have brushed over his entire body. Soon, an electronic voice sounded. One-word battle armor constructed from spirit alloys. Battle armor level, black. Tang Wuling had heard of the battle armor levels in the past. As was the case with megas, many of the levels involved in the parameters that determined the powers of soul masters followed the color system of soul rings, which from lowest to highest went white, yellow, purple, black, and red. There was also an extra golden color for some very special parameters. Even for suits of the battle armor of the same grade, they were differentiated by levels. For example, among suits of one-word battle armor, those that had been constructed from spirit alloys were most definitely of a higher level than normal battle armor. For battle armor masters, suits of one-word battle armor were very elementary, so the process of constructing one suit of one-word battle armor was more for gathering experience than anything else. After all, it was quite often the case that suits of two-word battle armor had to be made again from scratch, so most suits of one-word battle armor were at the white and yellow levels. Purple level one-word battle armor was extremely rare, and generally speaking, that was the upper limit of such a suit of battle armor as that was the upper limit on the level of metals used. Chapter 777. Only in extremely rare cases like Tang Wuling's, where spirit alloys had been used to construct his suit of battle armor, would the evaluation exceed the purple level for a suit of one-word battle armor. At the same time, the degree of enhancement provided by the suit of battle armor, the craftsmanship, and the quality of the metals or alloys used all had to be of a certain level before such an evaluation could be given. It was undoubtedly the case that Tang Wuling's one-word battle armor was extremely powerful. The entire suit of armor had been constructed from spirit alloys with a harmony rate of over 85%, and Gu Yue had designed it, while Yizinglan had constructed it. Only with the culmination of all of those factors did it manage to earn a black level rating. Both of the female employees stared at Tang Wuling as if they were looking at a ghost upon hearing this result. They were even more surprised than when they'd been led to the false conclusion that Tang Wuling was a two-word battle armor master. Tang Wuling's suit of black level one-word battle armor indicated that he hailed from a superb background, and even in the context of the entire soul master world, suits of one-word battle armor that were constructed from spirit alloys were virtually non-existent. Furthermore, suits of spirit alloy one-word battle armor could be upgraded right away, so his suit of two-word battle armor didn't have to be remade from scratch. All he had to do was infuse alloys of a high level, then redesign it to fit his needs. This would also result in a more powerful suit of two-word battle armor than if he were to remake one from scratch. As such, his spirit alloy one-word battle armor paved the way for a bright future for him. Furthermore, Tang Wuling was also extremely young and handsome, so it was no wonder that the eyes of the two female employees were practically glowing. Is that it? Tang Wuling asked, and only then did the two employees return to their senses. Shuayu hurriedly said, yes, please come with us to make your registration. The registration process consisted solely of filling out a form, which required information such as the academy Tang Wuling attended, his age, what level of battle armor master he was, and most importantly, the name that he was giving to his suit of battle armor, Dragon. Shuayu looked up at Tang Wuling with a hint of surprise in her eyes. The fact that he'd given his battle armor such a name indicated that his martial soul had something to do with dragons. There were many people who named their suits of battle armor in such a manner, but spirit alloy one-word armor battle masters were far from commonplace. This made Shuayu even more curious about Tang Wuling's abilities. That's right, the name that he'd given his suit of battle armor was Dragon. The Golden Dragon King bloodline had given him everything, and he was willing to bury true dragon skeletons for 3 years as a form of repayment to the Dragon clan. As such, he decided a long time ago that this was the name he was going to give to his one-word battle armor. Thus, he could now refer to himself as Dragon Tang Wuling. Of course, in the world of battle armor masters, most people only began to refer to themselves in such a manner after becoming two-word battle armor masters. Adding just a single word before one's name seemed a little forced, and many battle armor masters were of the opinion that one only became a true battle armor master after attaining a suit of two-word battle armor. However, suits of spirit alloy one-word battle armor were naturally an exception to this. Tang Wuling returned to the elevator, and Shuayu's eyes were filled with yearning as her gaze followed him the entire way. However, he certainly wasn't in the mood to exchange soul communicator numbers with her or anything like that. The employees of the Spirit Pagoda were also quite professional, and they merely looked on at him with yearning in their eyes without making any further advances. After exiting the Spirit Pagoda, Tang Wuling turned around and looked up at the grandiose building with a slightly lost expression on his face. Gu Yue, are you there? Are you in the Spirit Pagoda? If not, where are you? Wait for me. I'll attain my suit of two-word battle armor soon, and when that time comes, your name will be my only choice. The inner court finally made some arrangements for Tang Wuling. Firstly, they confirmed his status as an inner court disciple, and at the same time, he was reinstated as the leader of the Shrek 7 monsters, taking over from Gu Yue. These decisions had already been made over 3 years ago. Aside from that, he had been permitted to live on the Sea God's Island. His designated instructor was none other than his grandteacher, Zhuoshi. It was quite clear that Atlas Douluo hadn't decided to take Tang Wuling under his wing as Naya had implored him to do in her letter. He was still feeling a sense of loathing toward Tang Wuling. The Atlas Douluo was a very loyal man when it came to love, and in his eyes, the fact that Tang Wuling had attracted so many women at once indicated that he had to have led them on somehow, and his promiscuity had been the root cause behind Naya's departure. This notion made him very displeased, but even so, the contribution that he'd made to Shrek Academy was undeniable. As such, even he couldn't abolish Tang Wuling as one of Shrek 7 monsters unless he made a heinous mistake. On top of that, Tang Wuling's test results had also cemented his reputation as a superb prodigy, so they certainly couldn't turn their backs on him solely due to Yang Ming's personal biases. You little rascal. Zhuoshi slammed a hand down onto Tang Wuling's shoulder, and even with his insanely powerful body, he still couldn't help but grimace in the face of Zhuoshi's immense strength. You've really outdone yourself. What the hell is your body made of? Over 100,000 kilograms of right fist punching strength? Ha ha ha. I wish you could have seen the faces of all of the elders during the meeting. Even Light Dark Douluo Elder Long was completely stunned. From now on, you'll be cultivating under my tutelage on the Sea God's Island. What you have to do now is master my 9 arts of the Scarlet Dragon, and also improve that beautiful soul power of yours as quickly as possible. How can you be the leader of Shrek 7 monsters when your cultivation rank is so far below those of your friends? Yes, I'll be sure to work hard. Zhuoshi's 9 arts of the Scarlet Dragon naturally became 9 arts of the Golden Dragon in Tang Wuling's case. At present, he had mastered Golden Dragon shocks the heavens and Golden Dragon shakes the earth. It could be said that this was the ideal way to utilize Tang Wuling's blood essence power, and he'd been looking forward to learning these 9 arts for a long time. Due to the limitations of his powers in the past, he hadn't been able to continue learning these arts. However, his soul power had increased significantly compared to in the past, and even more importantly, his blood essence power had become extraordinarily abundant. These two factors would naturally make it a lot easier for him to cultivate the night arts of the Golden Dragon. Despite the fact that Tang Wuling had promised Zhuoxi that he was going to work hard, even Zhuoxi was stunned by just how hard he began to work. Under Zhuoxi's tutelage, Tang Wuling quickly began to cultivate, and he did so without any rest whatsoever. He only did 3 things every day: practice his 9 arts of the Golden Dragon, meditate, and forge. Meditation was his form of rest, and as soon as he recovered his soul power, he'd continue to practice. He forged for 6 hours per day, and the rest of his time was spent entirely on meditation and practicing his 9 arts of the Golden Dragon. It wouldn't be too surprising to see an inner court disciple cultivate in such a manner for 1 or 2 days at a time, but Tang Wuling kept this up for 3 whole months. The enormous bloodline power within his body had finally been activated during his cultivation of the 9 arts of the Golden Dragon, and with his immense blood essence power, it was as if exhaustion had become a foreign concept to him. In Zhuoxi's eyes, Tang Wuling seemed to have become a completely different person compared to the young boy he was 3 years ago. His aptitude in cultivating the 9 arts of the Golden Dragon far exceeded Zhuoxi's expectations. 6 months was an extremely short time for a soul master's cultivation, yet during these past 6 months, Tang Wuling had cultivated for around the same amount of time as a normal soul master would cultivate for 2 years. Even the most conscientious inner court disciples only cultivated for half the amount of time that he did. As such, he was able to completely transform himself in just 6 short months. Grand teacher. Tang Wuling extended a respectful bow toward Zhuoxi. Zhuoxi wore a benevolent expression as he asked, "Is there anything you don't understand?" Tang Wuling shook his head and replied, "No, Grand Teacher, but I want to stop cultivating the 9 arts of the Golden Dragon for now." With Zhuoxi's fiery temper, if another disciple had said this to him, he would most likely slap them across the face and scold them for wanting to slack off. However, the fact that Tang Wuling was saying this prompted him to heave a sigh of relief instead. Was he finally going to take a rest now? Good, it's indeed time for you to rest and relax for a bit. Appropriate rest is very beneficial for cultivation. However, Tang Wuling shook his head and explained, "No, Grand Teacher, I don't want to rest. I'm going to prepare to make a breakthrough to become a Soul King. I've already cultivated my soul power to the pinnacle of rank 49. He had cultivated his soul power from rank 47 to the pinnacle of rank 49 in just 6 months. The stimulative effects of the body sex cultivation method on his body coupled with the awakening of his Blue Silver Emperor had finally significantly raised the speed of his soul power progression. Furthermore, he had been working tirelessly during the past 6 months, and his soul power had finally reached a bottleneck. Zhuoxi suggested, "I think you should take a break for a few days to prime yourself before attempting a breakthrough." Tang Wuling replied, "I'm in great condition right now. I can sense that this won't be a big deal. It's just a breakthrough to become a Soul King. Even if I wanted to take a break, I should do it after my breakthrough." Zhuoxi hesitated momentarily before nodding in response. "All right, then I'll keep a lookout for you. Thank you, Grand Teacher." Zhuoxi found it very difficult to say no to Tang Wuling. What had he done in the past 6 months? He'd cultivated his soul power to the pinnacle of rank 49, and at the same time, not only had he mastered 4 more of the 9 arts of the Golden Dragon, he had truly made them his own by rehearsing and unleashing them countless times. As for the final 3 of the 9 arts of the Golden Dragon, those required an enormous amount of soul power expenditure that couldn't be replaced by blood essence power. As such, Tang Wuling's meteoric progress struck Zhuoxi with the feeling that he had nothing else left to teach him. Feng Wuyu also felt the same way. Chapter 778. Tang Wuling was already at the pinnacle of 6th rank blacksmiths, so he was one step away from becoming a 7th rank blacksmith. A 7th rank blacksmith was required to be able to complete soul refinements. Feng Wuyu was capable of this, and he could pass on his soul forging experiences to Tang Wuling. As for Tang Wuling himself, he'd been attempting soul refinements this entire time, but hadn't achieved any success. Feng Wuyu's suggestion to him was to go and seek out divine blacksmiths who were capable of heavenly refinements undoubtedly had a deeper understanding of soul refinements. Even though Feng Wuyu didn't want to admit his inferiority to someone else, he had no choice but to make this suggestion for the future of his prized disciple. Following the passage of 6 months, Tang Wuling's heart had already become completely placid. In other words, he'd been so busy with cultivation that he hadn't any time to think about anything else. During these 6 months, he was able to make use of the vast amount of uncommon metals at his disposal and his own forging skills to forge an alloy consisting of 4 metals, and he also changed the metallic constitution of his friends' suits of battle armor, as well as his own. This meant that the materials of all of their suits of 1-word battle armor had been upgraded, and they were ready to be remodeled into 2-word battle armor. Gu Yue had already completed the designs well in advance, and Yu Xinglan had become a 6th rank mecha maker, so they could begin constructing their suits of 2-word battle armor at any time. However, there was an obstacle standing in their way. Their cultivation ranks were simply insufficient to support them in the construction of the suits of armor. Furthermore, generally speaking, if one wanted to wear a suit of 2-word battle armor, then they had to at least be a 6th ring soul emperor. Zhuoxi said, "Seeing as you're making a breakthrough to become a Soul King, I'll take you somewhere that'll help you in that process." He grabbed onto Tang Wuling's shoulder and rose up into the air as he spoke, and the two of them quickly vanished into the distance. Tang Wuling could hear fierce winds howling past his ears, and it seemed that only around a quarter of a minute had passed before they landed on the ground again. They were situated in a small valley that was clearly somewhere on the sea god's island. Their entire surroundings were covered in lush greenery, and rich life force energy intermingled with the fragrance of different plants permeated through the air. Tang Wuling's martial soul was blue silver grass, so he was thrilled to be in this environment. The aura of nature was so potent here, and it was perfect for assisting him in making his breakthrough. He hurriedly sat down with his legs crossed before entering a meditative state. Zhuoxi stood beside him and sensed the changes in the soul power fluctuations emanating from his body. Gusts of gentle breeze blew past his ears as he inhaled the earthy fragrance around him, and his heart quickly calmed down. It was always so easy for him to lose himself in the world of nature. His soul power began to circulate according to the route stipulated by the mysterious heaven method on its own, and in Tang Wuling's spiritual world, it was as if specks of green light were appearing one after another, with each speck of light corresponding to a plant around him. They seemed to have sensed the aura of the Blue Silver Emperor coming from Tang Wuling's body, and they immediately began to resonate with him and transmit signals of joy and intimacy. Faint blue light began to emanate from his body, and his head of black hair gradually turned blue. His aura seemed to have completely fused as one with nature. If he didn't use his eyes to appraise Tang Wuling, even Zhuoxi would find it difficult to detect his presence. Zhuoxi nodded with an expression of approval on his face. This current state indicated that Tang Wuling had already truly understood the intricacies of his own martial soul, which was a very encouraging sign. His Golden Dragon King bloodline aura had been completely withdrawn, and only the aura of his Blue Silver Emperor was emanating from his body. His sensory scope gradually began to expand, and more green specks of light appeared in his spiritual world. His soul was increasing in a subtle manner while more and more plants released their auras. Even if they could only spare a tiny amount of energy, they were determined to release it so it could fuse with Tang Wuling's aura. As he breathed at a slow and even pace, the aura of the Blue Silver Emperor emanating from his body reciprocated these plants for their offerings of energy, and these plants would immediately begin to release emotions of elation. After coming into contact with the aura of the Blue Silver Emperor, there was a greater chance that they'd be able to attain sentience. A faint smile appeared on Tang Wuling's face. Here in the world of plants, he felt as if he'd found many close relatives, and all of them were growing along with him. His spiritual world began to spread even further, to the extent that it encompassed the entire sea god's island. All of a sudden, Tang Wuling's body shuddered, and he seemed to have sensed something indescribable from among the countless plants in his sensory scope. In contrast with the plants growing in other places, the plants on the sea god's island were clearly high-level life forms, and they were able to give him more than what other plants were capable of. However, right at this moment, there seemed to be a special aura emanating from among these plants. Those specks of green light gradually took on a golden hue in his spiritual world, and they were still connected to the aura of his Blue Silver Emperor. However, what had changed was that the amount of energy they were bestowing upon him had suddenly increased. Right at this moment, Tang Wuling felt as if an explosion had erupted in his spiritual world, and his body shuddered violently as if a massive being had barged its way into his spiritual world. He was then stunned to discover that a massive golden ball of light had appeared in his spiritual world, taking up the entirety of that world with its gigantic size. In the next instant, Tang Wuling's consciousness faded, and in the instant after that, he was surprised to discover that he arrived in a golden world. There were all types of plants of different shapes and sizes around him, but they were all of a faint golden color and emanating vitality the caliber of which Tang Wuling had never sensed before. He couldn't help but inhale this rich life force energy in a greedy manner, and it was as if each and every inhalation was elevating him to become a higher level life form. "You possess the aura of the Blue Silver Emperor, little guy." An elderly voice suddenly sounded, following which Tang Wuling was greeted by the sight of an elderly man slowly emerging from within the forest. This old man had a very special appearance. He was completely hunchbacked, his entire body was golden in color, and his long beard trailed all the way down onto the ground, as did his head of white hair and even his eyebrows. However, his eyes were of an extremely clear faint golden color, and they were filled with surprise as the man appraised Tang Wolin. "Hello, what is this place?" Tang Wolin asked with a hint of bewilderment on his face. The old man said, "You still haven't told me where your Blue Silver Emperor aura is coming from." Tang Wolin replied, "My martial soul is Blue Silver Emperor." The old man smiled and shook his head. "That's impossible. No human can possess Blue Silver Emperor as their martial soul. Tell me how you managed to obtain it." Tang Wolin faltered upon hearing this. "Why can't humans possess the Blue Silver Emperor as their martial soul?" The old man explained, "Because just like me, Blue Silver Emperor is a life form of the highest level in the world of plants, so there's no way for it to combine with another life form, unless the bloodline of the Blue Silver Emperor runs through your veins. In other words, a part of your bloodline stems from plants. Do you understand now?" Tang Wolin stared blankly at the old man. "I still don't understand. How can part of my bloodline stem from plants?" The old man scoffed. "You sure are dense. I'm saying that one of your parents is a plant, and that you were born to a human and plant couple." Tang Wolin exclaimed, "How is that possible? How can humans and plants reproduce with one another?" The old man explained, "It's far from impossible. Plants that attain sentience become soul beasts, and they can also cultivate through the years. After cultivating for 100,000 years, plants can also become humans. So why can't they reproduce with other humans? There's no mistaking it. You possess a part of his aura within your body. There's only one branch of humans on this continent who possess the aura of the Blue Silver Emperor, so you must be a direct lineal descendant of his. This is truly remarkable." Tang Wolin was extremely confused. "So you're saying that one of my parents is a plant-type soul beast that became a human after 100,000 years of cultivation? That's impossible. My parents are the most ordinary humans." Chapter 779. The old man said, "There's no way for me to discuss these matters with you as I have no idea what's happened to you prior to this point. However, I can sense your Blue Silver Emperor bloodline. He was the one who transferred me over to this place and gave me the chance to take root here and finally complete my awakening. As such, I owe a debt of gratitude to him. Seeing as you're his descendant, I'll pass on my gratitude to you instead." Wah. Before Tang Wolin had a chance to say anything, everything around him suddenly took on an extremely vibrant golden color. He felt as if countless specks of golden light were instantly fusing into his body, and tendrils of Blue Silver Emperor erupted from within his body in all directions. But in this moment, all of those tendrils had taken on a bright golden hue. These tendrils plunged into the ground, and the earth around him also turned golden in color. Golden light flashed from Tang Wolin's forehead, and a golden tree branch pattern suddenly appeared. In the next instant, he was plunged into a sea of golden light. His entire body was warm, indescribably comfortable. Furthermore, Tang Wolin was stunned to discover that his mind had also completely taken on a bright golden color. His spiritual power wasn't elevated at all. In fact, it had suffered a significant decrease. However, not only had his mind completely liquefied, it seemed to have become rather viscous as well. Most importantly, he could sense that his heart had taken on an unprecedented level of clarity, allowing him to instantly attain enlightenment in many areas of his cultivation that had befuddled him in the past. This was an extremely unique and wonderful feeling, as if he'd suddenly become smarter. This notion was rather ridiculous to Tang Wolin, but the fact of the matter was that these were his true feelings. His soul power bottleneck to rank 50 had been broken on its own without his realization, and his soul power was elevated to a high level. It washed over his entire body, and his soul power took on a golden hue, just like his blood essence power. However, this was a golden color that was tinged with white, and it was slightly different from the pure golden color of his blood essence power. What happened? What's happening to me? Enormous soul power surged throughout his entire body, and he exhaled before slowly opening his eyes. In the instant he opened his eyes again, he was given a massive fright and almost jumped up from the ground. This was because Scarlet Dragon Douluo she was no longer the only one standing beside him. Instead, there were over 10 more people gathered around him, all of whom had extremely fearsome auras emanating from their bodies. Standing directly in front of him was none other than the master of the Sea God's Pavilion, Atlas Douluo Yanming. Everyone's eyes were focused directly on him, and they seemed to be rather unfriendly toward him. Tang Wolin looked at Yanming, then cast his gaze toward Chawoshi, who was standing off to the side, and he was at a complete loss for what to do. Chawoshi's expression was rather peculiar, and Tang Wolin was unable to ascertain the nature of the situation from Chawoshi's facial expression alone. What happened? Yanming asked in a grave voice. Tang Wolin was slightly flabbergasted. I don't know what happened. What's going on? Elder Yan, I only just broke through my rank 50 bottleneck. Why are all of you here? Yanming's lips twitched slightly upon hearing this. You only broke through your rank 50 bottleneck? His voice had raised a few octaves, and he was clearly quite enraged for some reason. Tang Wolin gulped nervously in the face of the infuriated Atlas Douluo. He honestly had no idea what he'd done to draw such a furious reaction from Yanming. Chawoshi cleared his throat and asked in a low voice, Wolin, what did you do just then? Not long after you began meditating, all of the plants on the entire Sea God's Island turned golden in color. Tang Wolin turned to Chawoshi with a stunned expression. What? All of the plants on the Sea God's Island turned golden? Just like in my dream? That's right, all of the plants on the entire Sea God's Island had turned golden, making it appear as if the entire island had been forged from pure gold. All of the inner court disciples on the shore of the Sea God's Lake were completely dumbstruck. Such a majestic scene had never been witnessed ever since the Sea God's Island had been constructed over 10,000 years ago. You had a dream? Yanming looked at Tang Wolin with a contemplative expression and asked, what did you see in this dream of yours? Tang Wolin hesitated momentarily before informing everyone of what he'd seen during his meditation. Peculiar expressions appeared on the faces of Yanming and the few oldest titled Douluos gathered here as they listened to Tang Wolin's recount. Light Dark Douluo Long Ye sighed, so that old man is the one behind all this. This situation is really strange. Though, what could he be referring to? I think it would be wise for you to try and communicate with that old man, Pavilion Master. All of a sudden, Yanming's expression changed as he stared at Tang Wolin with an intense gaze. You just said you possess the Blue Silver Emperor martial soul? Yes. Tang Wolin replied without any hesitation, but it's impossible for a normal human being to be able to attain the Blue Silver Emperor martial soul. Could it be that he was referring to? An astonished expression appeared on his face, and it had been many years since he last displayed such strong emotions. A thought seemed to have also occurred to Light Dark Douluo Long Ye as her expression was just as spectacular. Both of the most powerful titled Douluos present wore stunned expressions on their faces. Tang Wolin was still completely in the dark. What are you saying, Pavilion Master? Yanming took a deep breath before replying. In the history of Shrek Academy, you're not the first student to possess the Blue Silver Emperor martial soul, but the second one instead. I'm sure you know who the first one was, right? Tang Wolin's heart stirred as a look of awe and veneration appeared on his face, and he asked, could it be that you're referring to the mighty figure who founded the Tang sect and was the leader of the first generation of Shrek's 7 monsters? Yanming nodded in response. That's exactly who it is. According to what Elder Jin told you, it's quite possible that you're his direct lineal descendant. An astonished look appeared on Tang Wolin's face. How is that possible? That mighty figure existed 20,000 years ago. Even if I did inherit his bloodline, I shouldn't be the second person to possess the Blue Silver Emperor martial soul. On top of that, my original martial soul was Blue Silver Brass, and it only evolved into Blue Silver Emperor recently due to an improvement in my bloodline, so it should count as a second martial soul awakening. Yanming praised him with a meaningful expression, and said, that man from 20,000 years ago also had the Blue Silver Brass martial soul to begin with before awakening his Blue Silver Emperor martial soul. He was only able to do this because his mother was the first Blue Silver Emperor to have attained a human form after cultivating for 100,000 years, which is why this bloodline exists. Elder Jin wouldn't misjudge your bloodline. There's no one in this world more familiar with plant-type martial souls than he is, so it's very likely that you really did inherit your bloodline from that man. Even though it's been many generations, it seems that it's not a coincidence that you also possess the Tang surname. Tang Wolin was still struggling to come to terms with the situation. So what you're saying is, the old man in my dream truly exists. Yanming harumphed boldly. During your meditation, the true core of the Sea God's Island lost over 30% of its energy. Do you understand? Tang Wolin continued to look at Yanming in a flabbergasted manner. Of course he didn't understand. He had no idea what Yanming was talking about. Everyone, come with me. As he spoke, Yanming swept a sleeve toward Tang Wolin, and the latter felt his body enter a dim and murky place completely out of his control. However, this place didn't cause any discomfort to him in any way. Light flashed soon after, and when his surroundings became clear again, he had already arrived at another place. The first thing that appeared in his field of view was an unfathomably enormous tree with a gargantuan canopy that stretched for as far as the eyes could see. At the foot of the colossal tree was a giant treehouse that was directly connected to the tree. Above the treehouse hung a plaque, upon which 3 large words were emblazoned: Sea God's Pavilion. Tang Wulin's heart jolted upon seeing this. It was his first time here, but it was quite clear that this was the core of the entire Shrek Academy, and even the entirety of Shrek City, the Sea God's Pavilion. This was a place that was inhabited only by the elders of the Sea God's Pavilion. Chapter 780. Tang Wulin could feel that the natural energies surging through his surroundings were far richer than those on the Sea God's island. In particular, the rich life force energy in the air made him draw in deep breaths in a reflexive manner, and soul power immediately flowed through his entire body, basking him in a sensation of indescribable comfort. His blue silver emperor martial soul was also transmitting signals of excitement to him. Yan Ming turned to Tang Wulin and said, "This is the Sea God's Pavilion, which was constructed within this massive tree, and it's also the core of Shrek City. This tree is known as the Golden Tree, and it's blessed Shrek City for over 20,000 years. Whenever Shrek City has encountered any major crises, this tree has always protected us. Whenever exceptional prodigies have appeared, this tree has always given us wisdom and direction. The old man that you saw is the tree spirit of this Golden Tree, the true guardian of Shrek Academy, and we have never been able to meet him. I don't know what Elder Jin did to you, but I could sense that 30% of the energy within the Golden Tree has disappeared. This is the first time that all of the plants on the Sea God's island have taken on a golden color." Yan Ming paused momentarily before continuing. "I can also tell you that back when the Thousand Hands Douluo, Tang San, became a god, he constructed this Sea God's island prior to departing to the divine realm, and he was the one who transferred the ancient Golden Tree to this place. Do you understand now why we're convinced that you're a direct lineal descendant of his?" Tang Wulin listened to Yan Ming's words in a dumbstruck manner. Even he was beginning to realize that perhaps his martial soul really was related to the founder of the Tang sect, Tang San. But Tang San was a mighty figure who lived over 20,000 years ago. How was this possible? Chawoshi chuckled. "Regardless of whether there's a bloodline connection or not, this is definitely a good thing. Elder Jin's assistance will naturally be of great benefit to Wulin. You think this is a good thing?" Yan Ming glared at Chawoshi and said, "It's obviously a good thing for him, but do you know how long it'll take for the Golden Tree to accumulate 30% of its power? 3,000 years. 30% of the Golden Tree's power is enough to protect Shrek Academy from a catastrophic disaster. This is an immeasurable loss to our entire academy." A wry smile appeared on Tang Wulin's face as he looked at the furious Yan Ming. "But I don't know how to return this energy back to the Golden Tree." Yan Ming instructed, "Release your blue silver emperor martial soul. I want to take a look at it." "Yes." Tang Wulin hurriedly did as he was told, activating his soul power to release his blue silver emperor martial soul. Thick bluish golden vines erupted from the ground beneath his feet alongside a series of soul rings. 4 soul rings appeared first, consisting of 3 purples and a black. However, immediately thereafter, a peculiar scene unfolded. A massive bluish golden projection slowly emerged behind Tang Wulin, and it was none other than the blue silver emperor that had appeared following the second awakening of his martial soul. After that, another projection emerged beside the blue silver emperor. This was a large shimmering golden tree that was the spitting image of the miniature version of the Golden Tree. As soon as those 2 projections appeared, the soul power within Tang Wulin's body surged forth in a frenzy, and all of the blue silver emperor vines he'd summoned began to tremor violently while also changing color. Their original bluish golden color gradually transformed into intertwining colors of blue and gold. The 2 massive projections gradually approached one another before fusing together, and the thick vines of the blue silver emperor began to intertwine with the branches of the Golden Tree. The blue and golden colors combined to form a strange greenish golden color, and an enormous burst of life force energy erupted forth. Even the tidal Douluos in the surrounding area could clearly feel rich life force energy being injected into their bodies. This feeling was most pronounced for light dark Douluo Long Yeyu. She was the oldest of the tidal Douluos present, and it was just as she had said, her days in this world were limited. However, in that instant, she could clearly sense that renewed vitality had been injected into her withering life essence, and her life force fluctuations gradually grew stronger. The process wasn't very fast nor drastic, but it was an increase in her life essence rather than just an instantaneous increase in life force energy. The main difference between the two was that the former was a permanent change, while the latter would disappear in an instant. When the 2 projections finally completely combined as one, a mystifying turn of events unfolded. The blue silver emperor and the golden tree both vanished, and were replaced by a greenish golden figure. The greenish golden figure was rather blurry, but it was quite clear that it was meant to be of the same appearance as Tang Wulin. It hovered behind Tang Wulin, forming a massive wheel of light with a diameter of around 10 meters. The projection then spread open its arms as if it were embracing the entire world. Is this soul skill mutation or martial soul mutation? Even the master of the Sea God's Pavilion, Yan Ming, was unable to immediately make sense of the situation unfolding before his eyes. Right at this moment, the greenish golden projection behind Tang Wulin swayed before suddenly transforming into a greenish golden halo that descended around Tang Wulin's body, becoming his 5th soul ring. The projection then vanished, and the blue silver emperor summoned by Tang Wulin settled down again. They reverted back to their bluish golden color, and they looked no different compared to their past appearance. However, a translucent greenish golden soul ring had appeared around Tang Wulin's body. The soul ring was filled with vitality, and it almost appeared to have a substantial form. All of the tidal Douluos present, including Yan Ming, looked on with wide eyes, and like dark Douluo Long Yeyu exclaimed, "That injection of life force energy has increased my lifespan by at least 10 years." This was also the case for the other tidal Douluos present. 10 years of lifespan. This was something that simply couldn't be bought with money. Furthermore, Long Yeyu was only able to ascertain how much she benefited in such a concrete manner as she was nearing the end of her life. In contrast, the other tidal Douluos still have powerful life forces, so they would have only received even greater benefits from that influx of rich and refreshing life force energy. However, none of them were focusing on the changes in their own life force as their attention had been fully absorbed by the greenish golden soul ring before them. The normal colors of soul rings consisted of white, yellow, purple, black, and red. Those were the standard soul ring colors that had existed in the world of soul masters for tens of thousands of years, and they represented 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, and 100,000 years respectively. This system was only broken around 10,000 years ago, when Spirit Ice Douluo had invented soul spirits. Soul spirits of soul beasts that were over 100,000 years old could form orange soul rings, thereby adding a new 6th color to the existing 5. However, this greenish golden soul ring was most definitely completely unprecedented. All of the tidal Douluos present were adamant that such a soul ring had never appeared in the history of the human world. Tang Wulin had created history. The last human to have created a brand new color of soul rings was Spirit Ice Douluo, a legendary figure who had once reigned supreme over the entire world. Test out your 5th soul skill, Yan Ming instructed. In the world of soul masters, it was considered to be a major taboo to ask others to reveal their soul skills. However, that obviously didn't apply to this situation as all of the people present were Tang Wulin's teachers and seniors. Tang Wulin hurriedly nodded before injecting his soul power into his 5th soul ring. All of a sudden, scintillating light erupted from the greenish golden soul ring, and Tang Wulin could feel the soul power within his body surging into the soul ring in a frenzy. His entire body had even been illuminated to match the color of the greenish golden soul ring. And then, that was it. Tang Wulin's soul power was rapidly sapped away, and within just the span of a few breaths, all of the soul power within his entire body had been absorbed by the greenish golden soul ring. Tang Wulin's body swayed, and he only managed to remain on his feet as he was able to support himself with his immense bloodline power. What happened to your soul skill? Chawoshi asked. Tang Wulin wore a dumbstruck expression. I don't know. I could only feel all of my soul power being sucked away by the soul ring, but nothing happened after that. Peculiar expressions appeared on everyone's faces upon hearing this. This was also completely unprecedented. Soul skills did indeed expend different amounts of soul power depending on their caliber, but never had a soul master been unable to unleash a soul skill even after all of their soul power had been sucked away. Yan Ming laid a hand on Tang Wulin's shoulder so he could get a better gauge on the latter's bodily condition, and it was indeed the case that all of his soul power had been sucked away, leaving behind not even a single trace. A normal soul master would have most likely immediately fainted after having all of their soul power sucked away, but Tang Wulin was able to remain largely unaffected due to his immensely powerful physical constitution. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.